You tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Well. Somebody got their ass whooped. And it wasn't Alabama. I think it might have been some Bayou Bengals down there in Baton Rouge. And it seems like maybe the Jalen Milroe and the Cancer Five that a lot of people nicknamed them after their debacle against Vanderbilt and struggling against South Carolina. Seems like during the off week they may have found a cure for that cancer. Maybe, just maybe, all that backlash and all that criticism lit a fire under their proverbial ass. And maybe they're thinking, some people are saying that maybe some of us owe Jalen Milroe and the Cancer Five an apology. Maybe we do. Maybe we don't. Let's talk about it. Yellow hammer, rammer, jammer, beat the hell out of them, Alabama indeed. Seems like Brian Kelly is maybe having some flashbacks and traumatizations from when we beat him down in Miami when he was the coach at Notre Dame. Looked a lot similar in score yesterday. We beat them 42-14 then and beat them 42-13 yesterday. And it's probably actually worse than that. And we're having some rumblings down in the bayou about Brian Kelly and whether he's the man, whether he's a farce, which we all know he is a farce. We'll talk about that as well as the possibility that maybe we owe Jalen Milroe and the Cancer Five that we nicknamed them a few weeks back, people like myself and others, maybe we owe them an apology. Maybe we don't. We'll talk about the college football polls that came out as well. But before we get to all that, we have 5 new posse members that just joined for $2.99 a month, just 75 cents a week. That's just a half a bottle of water for the outlaw. They're getting their badge and they're getting deputized today, and they are Firmus, Paradox 1, Braska _ Rascal, Power T, Snell's World, and Brendan A&F are now saddled up, mounted up, ready to go. And from now on out, they will get their random 4 horsemen shout out from time to time, as well as possibly be the comment of the day. Seems like maybe old Brian Kelly might be in a little bit of trouble. From what I'm seeing from some of his fans, they're not too happy with Brian Kelly right now. As a matter of fact, a bunch of them got on there and was calling Brian Kelly out. I'll bring that up for you right now real quick. As you can see right there, with his, I don't know what the hell is wrong with him right there, man. He looks like he's spazzing out. But immediately following the game, LSU fans took to social media to suggest that Brian Kelly would throw his players under the bus following the latest loss. It's definitely time to start rethinking the decision to bring in Brian Kelly. This clown can't win the big game or make adjustments. He'll throw his players under the bus, one person said. Brian Kelly will throw his players under the bus again after the game. Why would any player want to play for him? Asked another. Who will Brian Kelly drop kick under the bus tonight? Asked a third person. Well, it turns out the fans weren't exactly wrong. Kelly did take some of the responsibility for LSU's struggles on Saturday night, but he went on to say, if you're watching the game, you're like, what did these guys do for 2 weeks? Kelly said. We have a scheme to stop the quarterback. We did not get that done, so I take responsibility for it. But we also have to put our players in the right position to take advantage of what they're capable of doing. So we own it together. We've got to get it fixed because it's been a couple of weeks now. He always comes in there after the fact. What you need to do is start with saying that you're at fault, Brian, instead of coming in and first saying, what did these guys do for 2 weeks? What did these guys do for 2 weeks? Not what did the coaching staff, what did my players do for 2 weeks? Well, that's on you, Brian, once again. This guy, man, he comes down, he fakes an accent. Right out the gate, man, that's a big red flag. And the thing is, if he had been just doing it as a joke, I wouldn't even think nothing about it. But the guy actually did it and thought people believed what he was doing. Sounds like some people in the political arenas here lately. Did he throw him under the bus? maybe a little bit. Not quite as bad as what he had been doing, but nonetheless, once again, Brian Kelly comes across as insincere and just a basic. He has that corrupt, sleazy politician look about him, don't he? He does to me anyway. Now, let's get back to Alabama. A couple of us made some podcasts last week, myself included. They called Jalen Milroe, said him and his little entourage may have been holding Alabama hostage a little bit with the fact that they were saying that if Milroe were to get benched, that there would be some kind of coup or people laying down and that kind of deal. They're starting to say, a lot of the people are starting to say, the ones that are the Mary Poppins kind that won't you ever criticize your team whatsoever. If you do, you're not a real fan. Let me tell y'all something. If you don't criticize your team, you're not a real fan. You have to be able to take constructive criticism, and that's all people were doing. And do we owe them an apology? No, we don't. I know that's going to piss a lot of you off. No, we don't owe them an apology. As a matter of fact, that LSU game that they won yesterday in fine fashion looked like a team that wanted to play for Alabama and represent that script A. They looked like it. They looked the part yesterday. They didn't look like a bunch of players that were just coming in and just thinking they could roll the helmet out and worry about what their NIL deal is going to be next week. They didn't have that look about them. They had a look of a team that wanted to play and represent Alabama football in the way it's been represented for a long, very long time. So do we owe them an apology? No. That LSU game was an apology to us for being so lackadaisical and basically not representing Alabama in the way that they should be represented in that game against Vanderbilt, specifically with the way things went down and how people were throwing tantrums and fits, and then follow that up with and struggle against South Carolina. Come to find out, Vanderbilt and South Carolina are actually pretty good teams. Vanderbilt almost beat Texas, beat Auburn in Auburn for the first time in 100-plus years of football, and then South Carolina has gotten on somewhat of a win streak. They beat Oklahoma, and then they beat Texas A&M, who everybody thought was the next King Ding-a-ling. That wasn't happening. The Gamecocks took care of that in Columbia, and then South Carolina went on to beat Vanderbilt yesterday in Nashville, 28-7. So, do we owe an apology? No. But I will say that now I'm very impressed with the way that y'all have been able to come back and the way y'all have handled yourself and taking the criticism and taking it and using it as that proverbial match that has lit a fire under your ass. And I hope it continues, because if Alabama continues to play like they played against LSU, I'm not sure there's anybody that can beat Alabama. And now we're in position that if we get high enough, we could get one of those home games here in Tuscaloosa, play a home game at Bryant-Denny Stadium in late December or middle of December for the first time ever. That would be awesome, especially for the local economy here in Tuscaloosa during the Christmas time, because all the students leave. So we're in position for that. And hell, we might even be in position to go to the SEC title game. Way, I don't really want to go to the SEC title game. It's an extra game that you have to play and possibly get injured. And then you have a playoff game starting December 20th. So I'm just not I'm starting to think maybe these conference title games sort of need to go away. But that's another topic for another day. Now, I also promised y'all we'd look at the poll real quick, and that's what we'll do. Oregon's number 1. Ohio Stank is number 2. Texas Longhorns is number 3. That's not going to last long, by the way. I don't think Texas is as good as they looked against Florida. Florida was a walking wounded. They were basically starting a third-string quarterback that transferred from Yale. Penn State's number 4. I think they're overranked as well. Indiana's number 5. They're finally getting the respect that they do deserve. I think Indiana should be ahead of Penn State. Penn State has a loss, so I don't know why they're not. Tennessee's number 6. BYU's number 7 after a thrilling victory over Utah. And I heard some controversy about the Utah AD basically calling out the officials and that kind of deal. Come across as really Bush League, Utah. Take your loss. And I went back and looked at the call that he supposedly was upset about, and it was one of those 50-50 holding calls. It wasn't something that you should go on national TV and make an ass out of yourself. Number 8 is Notre Dame. Number 9 is Alabama. Number 10 is Ole Miss. Georgia drops all the way down to number 11, which is where they should be behind Ole Miss because they have the same amount of losses, and Ole Miss just beat them by 18. Then as you go through the rest of the top 25, you got Miami, Boise State, SMU, Texas A&M, Army. It's up to number 16. They're undefeated. They play Notre Dame really soon. Clemson, Colorado, and con time. Deion Sanders is actually in position to go to a decent bowl now. Maybe he won't shit the bed here at the end of the season like he did last year. Number 19 is Washington State. They should be higher. They only got one loss. Kansas State, LSU, Louisville, South Carolina, Missouri, and Tulane. What the hell, man? What the hell is Missouri still ranked for? Golly. And that Eli Drinkwitz guy, he's a delusional little goof. They interviewed him yesterday. They asked him a question. He didn't answer the question. He said, hell yeah, now Missouri we're in position to go to the playoffs. Y'all ain't going to playoffs, man. You got blowed out. It's not like you kept the games close that you lost. Y'all not going to playoffs, Missouri. Sorry. How are they ranked still? All right. So that is the AP poll. Let's bring up the coaches poll for y'all now real quick. It's about the same. There's just a few things that's different. As you can see, Tennessee's actually ranked 4th in this poll. They're ahead of Penn State. Penn State's still ahead of Indiana with one loss. That's still stupid. Notre Dame, BYU, Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss, and basically all of the other ones are about the same, and they're intertwined differently in just one or two spots. So I'm not going to go through all that, but I will say one thing about this one. The coaches poll is stupid for doing one thing. How do you rank Georgia a spot ahead of Ole Miss, who just beat them by 18? Now, I could understand if Ole Miss up and had the game of their life and they had a bad record or something, or a middle-of-the-road record, maybe even had 3 losses. If Ole Miss had 3 losses, I could buy you having Georgia ahead of them still. But they got the same amount of losses. They basically got the same record, and you still got Georgia ahead of them? Come on, man. I'm surprised y'all didn't put Georgia ahead of Alabama, too. That's why these polls are stupid, man. I think now they just should go with the playoff poll. They shouldn't even recognize these polls. These polls shouldn't even get the opportunity to crown a national championship at this point if they're going to continue to do asinine stuff like that. I think the coaches poll is really suspect because they get their ADs and their sports information directors and people like that to do the voting for them. But that's all I got to say about that. If y'all don't mind, drop a comment section. Tell me what you think about all that. Do you think we owe Jalen, Milroe, and the Cancer 5 an apology? Or do you think it should be just one of those things that, hey, everybody said what they had to say, and now things look like they're getting a little bit better for Alabama. Things are starting to look a lot brighter for Kalen DeBoer in his first year. If you don't mind, like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. That's the big 4, and they're all absolutely free. You can also join the Outlaw Posse, as I said before, and get your badge and get deputized like those guys did earlier in the show. It's not $2.99 a month, just 75 cents a week. You'll get a badge. You'll get deputized. You'll get a random 4 Horsemen shout-out on the actual podcast, as well as possibly be the comment of the day. KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.